What's up? I'm back. This segment talking to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was pretty good last night. You know, Game of Thrones usually starts off. They usually build the episodes up, so usually the first two episodes of every season, maybe even three sometimes, are slower than the next four or five. That being said, the storyline potential is excellent because this is going to be the season that's going to deviate from the books the most, as obviously they're catching up and they're going to get to a point where the creator of the books never got to yet. When you look at it from a certain aspect, what I really like about it is that you can see the fact that now, because when you first had Game of Thrones, people were rooting for people. People were like, I want the Starks to to be the kings, to win, right? Some people want the Dragon Queen, Daenerys Targaryen. They want her and her dragons, to rule. But I think now when you're looking at the show, you're not really rooting for anyone in particular to rule anymore. You just like the show. You like the intrigue and just the fact that there's like so many different storylines going on. You look at the South, they don't even think about White Walkers. That's not even in their consciousness, right? Then you look at what's going on in the East, the Dragon Queen, like the East in itself, is formidable. Varys, right? He went over to the East, and now he's not really worried about them Cersei striking him back in the East because it's so far. And you have all these different shows. And next week, I think they're going to go to Dorne. And Dorne was shot in Spain. And I think Dorne is actually going to be the sleeper. I think there's a lot of potential with Dorne, to be honest. Like, the fact that they want to do it in Spain, I think they're trying to bring in a little bit of the Southern European, Moorish feel and energy to the show, which I think is needed. I actually think Dorne, in a sense, is. I mean, that's gonna be one of my favorite parts of the show this season. In my opinion, that has the most potential to really grow into something that's even beyond what it was in the books. When you look at it, though, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of factors going on, right? So for instance, Tyrion Lannister is gone, right? You can look at the South and tell, the Lannisters, and tell the Lannister dynasty's in trouble. No question about it. Like, you could tell. Now, how far will they deviate from the books? I think in some ways it's going to be like Cersei's going to have, her little issues with the faith and the council coming up, probably. But there's going to be, I think, with the Lannister dynasty, they're probably going to play out almost like how it was in the books. But you can tell, though, that in a sense, they don't have the same steam anymore. You can see it, to be honest. And I think it's really interesting because when you look at it from a certain aspect, I think, when you look at Sansa, I think Sansa's character has a lot of potential because you don't really know where they're playing out with that at all, right? And I think in some ways, sometimes when you look at Littlefinger, I mean, the best scenario played out for him. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the elder Lannister, he was the only one who had the skill to play chess with Littlefinger, to be honest. Varys, of course, right? But we're just talking about now. Varys is not gonna kill you. He doesn't have armies. So we're talking about people who could kill you, right? You can look at Cersei, Jaime. They ain't over their heads. I'm not even going to talk about Tommen. I mean, he poor guy, he he already has, a beautiful lady plotting on him, right? She's going to control him. And in a sense, when you look at it, though, I think even though you may not be rooting for anybody, I've always said this. Stannis should be king. I've always said this. Even when people like Daenerys Targaryen, I think she's, appealing to people's egos. I think, if this is a show, so I think it's cool to have her come in and save the world. But when you look at it, Stannis is the king. There's no question about it. The fact that he was the only one to understand the White Walker threat out of the non-Northerners tells you something. Most people don't even realize, if you look at the Game of Thrones geography, the fictional geography, the North is bigger than all the kingdoms combined. The North is an important territory. It's always been, and it's been a territory that's been so important. You can't even put a non-Northerner on the throne. Like, even though the South is controlling the country, you always have to have a Northerner who's a regional king because it's such a vast territory and the people get kind of tribal. And partly it's because they understand the White Walker threat. The Warlords in the North, they understand things that no one else in the game understands. And because of that, the North is an important territory. So when you look at Stannis, you look at his Fire Witch, you look at Jon Snow, which I kind of go, kind of have a love-hate relationship with Jon Snow. Sometimes his character's okay. I never thought his character was great. Sometimes it annoys me, but he is intriguing enough when you put him, especially with Stannis, the Red Witch, which I think the Red Witch is already plotting on him. That's when she asks if he's a virgin or not. I think she's already plotting on him. But I do think she will find that he's not as easy to manipulate as Stannis, though. I would give him that. And you can tell in a sense that when you're looking at it, the show is exciting because you still have the plot for the throne going on, but then you still have the White Walker stuff going on. But the thing that makes the show great is that you have so much characters that you care about that's going to grow. I mean, Arya, she's going to be in her new territory. She's going to learn the arts of assassination, right? And you look at all these different things. Like, you have people like the Boltons. When they said it, you're like, damn it, you forget about them sometimes. Like, there's a lot of characters they could play up. And when you're looking at the game, I think what makes this season good is that for the first time, you don't really care who wins per se. You like the intrigue. And I think it's important. Because, I make so many videos talking about how people don't really understand the game of chess and the game of politics and life. And I think what makes the Game of Thrones so intriguing is that that's what this whole show is about. And it's the second most popular show on TV besides The Walking Dead. And I don't think you could compare the shows. You could look at the Game of Thrones and you can tell it's getting better. You can tell. I do expect them to bring the Dothraki back in. It's kind of like that was kind of hinted. That was kind of a play in the books. I expect them at the end of the season to bring them back in because I do think Daenerys made a mistake sending Ser Jorah off. I think in the end of the day, a lot of people in his position would have done that, to be honest. And you could tell he genuinely liked her and he genuinely cared about her ascent to the throne. I don't really think at this point the people around her, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, you take him away, right? The older knight is cool, but he's a good number 2 person. Like, he's a knight. He's not a person who could tell you about political. He don't have political savvy, to be honest. Because when she said, "I'm a queen, not a politician," that's when she made the first mistake. Royalty, kings and queens, are politicians. And when you deal with power, it's always about compromise, no matter what. That's what people don't really realize. That's why Varys, to me, outside Littlefinger, I think Varys is the totally best character in the show. I think probably better than Littlefinger. When Varys was telling, the dwarf, right, that, listen, I want a world where the rich don't pay, the powerful don't prey on the powerless, right? That's someone who understands that real power, real civilization is a harmony based on different communities. And the minute you stop understand that, the minute your civilization is destroyed or it starts to crumble. I think that's why, in a sense, Stannis, again, you could look at Stannis and tell he kind of understands that. What did Stannis do? His right-hand man was like a person who like hunts crabs, like a fisherman, right? And that's his right-hand man. If Stannis becomes king, that guy will be the hand of the king. Like, that tells you a person who understands you have to have a joint venture between the lower classes and higher classes. So even though I'm not rooting for anybody, Stannis is the dude. Now, he's not popular. He's kind of a character that people don't really pay attention to. But I do think, in a way, if the writers were really had the guts, if you make him die in a White Walker war. But he's definitely the one who deserves the throne best, because the other people are all in the clouds. They don't even know what's going on when it comes to that, to be honest. And either way, though, the Game of Thrones should reach new territory this year. Like, there's no question. When I was watching the first episode, I was like, damn, it ended so quick. Like, I mean, you don't really get a show that gets better in the 5th or 6th season. It's getting stronger. And you can tell it's going to keep getting stronger and stronger. Because when you add Dawn in the mix, I mean, you had the South fighting the North, right? You had that. Then you had Stannis, right? You had the White Walkers. The Wildlings, right? You got like 4 or 5 groups vying for power. That's not even counting the Greyjoys, right? Who's kind of like an afterthought, but you kind of understand them. Then you come from the Eyrie, right? Where, Littlefinger's there now. You have all these different powers, right? And one thing people are missing, I heard somebody say this online, and I agree with them. They said the most dangerous people in the Game of Thrones is really the religious, the monks, the spiritual communities, which is now going to start to make their presence felt. Cersei's going to find it out in the season and later on this season, right? The Red Witch, like those type of individuals are very powerful players. Because somebody said, who was the person who made all the maps, right? The maps when you see in the beginning of the show of all the different kingdoms. Who made them? They said the monks. They said the monks. Like, wow, there were certain monks who did that. That shows the people who made those maps have intimate knowledge of all the kingdoms. You can tell a major weakness in a lot of the people for vying for power in the Game of Thrones is they only see things from their kingdom. It's so big, so vast. Remember the 7 kingdoms. The East, where the Daenerys is not even considered 7 kingdoms, right? That's the free territories. The Game of Thrones is taking place on a very vast territory land, and if you want to rule all that, I mean, you have to kind of know what's going on in each landmass, and I don't think a lot of people do that. So the monks were able to build those maps and pinpoint every single part of, the individual kingdoms. It's showing a vast amount of knowledge and an understanding of all the different kingdoms and the territories. And then that shows they're very dangerous. And when you look at it as the threats are getting more mystical, like the White Walkers, the Red Witch, you can see the spiritual and religious communities in Game of Thrones are going to probably take a much more prominent role in this series. So, great start. Can't wait for more. I know there's leaked episodes. I'm trying my best not to watch them, right? That's what happened with Daredevil. Watch all the whole series now, and I'm done now, right? So I'm trying to go keep Game of Thrones from week to week, but we'll see how that lasts. Till next time, peace.